"Impossible!" screamed the scientist as he dropped to his knees before the statue of St. Anthony. His trembling finger pointed at the inexplicable sight that defied everything he'd spent his career defending. Pure, liquid gold, not water, not paint, not a trick of light, was flowing from the stone eyes of the century-old saint. Father Thomas froze mid-blessing, the prayer book slipping from his grasp as a single golden tear formed, rolled down the statue's cheek, and solidified before 300 stunned witnesses. The air in St. Gabriel's Cathedral suddenly felt heavy, charged with something beyond scientific explanation. "This cannot be real," whispered the scientist. But as the second golden tear began to form, he knew his world would never be the same again. But how did this extraordinary moment begin? Just 30 minutes earlier, St. Gabriel's Cathedral had been like any other Sunday morning. If you enjoy content that helps you grow spiritually, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and join our community for more inspiration. Let's get started. The pews filled gradually as parishioners filed in, exchanging quiet greetings. Father Thomas prepared for what should have been an ordinary Mass during a time of economic hardship for the community. The stock market had crashed 2 weeks prior, wiping out retirement savings. 3 local factories had announced closures. Desperation hung in the air alongside the incense. Father Thomas had been troubled all morning, struggling with what message to deliver to his suffering congregation. As he walked toward the pulpit, he noticed a wealthy businessman in the front row checking stock prices on his phone during the opening hymn. In the back, a single mother counted coins in her palm, likely all she had to offer. The contrast struck him deeply. "Today," Father Thomas began, his voice stronger than he felt, "I wish to speak about what we truly value." He opened his Bible to Matthew 6:21. "For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." When everything material is stripped away, what remains? The scientist, who had reluctantly accompanied his elderly mother, shifted uncomfortably. He'd written articles debunking religious miracles and saw faith as psychological comfort for the weak-minded. Yet he remained, if only to support his mother through these difficult economic times. "Our community faces difficult days," Father continued. "Jobs lost, savings destroyed, security vanished. But I ask you this, have we placed our faith in the wrong treasure? Have we worshipped at the altar of worldly wealth?" As he spoke these words, a strange silence fell over the cathedral. Not the quiet of attentive listening, but something stronger, as if time itself had paused. A beam of sunlight broke through the clouds outside, shining directly through the stained glass window, depicting Jesus throwing the money changers from the temple. This unusually focused light illuminated the statue of St. Anthony in its alcove. We all face moments when life seems overwhelming and finding meaning feels impossible. During these difficult financial times, when markets crash and security vanishes, a proper understanding can make all the difference. This is exactly what The Secret of Jesus' Apparitions offers: a path to clarity and wisdom through his revelations. This ebook goes into his prophecies and offers insight into what lies ahead. It's available for free in the pinned comment. Grab it now before the edition's gone. For what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Father Thomas quoted Mark 8:36, unaware that something extraordinary was happening behind him. A child pointed silently. A woman gasped. The scientist's eyes widened in disbelief as the first impossible golden tear formed in the eye of the stone saint. The congregation sat in stunned silence as the golden tear slid down the stone face with deliberate slowness, as if ensuring all present would witness what was happening. Father Thomas, now aware of the commotion, turned and saw the miracle unfolding. The prayer book fell from his hands. The second tear formed at the corner of the saint's eye, catching the light from the stained glass windows, reflecting it in ways that made the entire cathedral glow with an unearthly radiance. An elderly woman clutched her rosary tightly, the beads digging into her palm. "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God," she whispered, the words of Matthew 5:8 passing through her lips like a prayer. As the congregation watched, a third golden tear formed, then a fourth. Each moved with the same impossible slowness, each gleamed with the same unearthly light. By the time the seventh tear had begun its journey, Father Thomas found his voice. "My children," he said, his words barely audible, yet somehow filling the entire cathedral. "We are witnessing something that cannot be explained by human wisdom, for the wisdom of this world is foolishness in God's sight." The words from 1 Corinthians 3:19 seem to hang in the air, shimmering like the golden tears themselves. The scientist crawled forward on his knees, his academic pride forgotten in the face of mystery. As he approached the statue, the air seemed to thicken around him, as if he were moving through water rather than air. When he reached the base of the statue, he extended a tentative hand toward one of the solidified golden tears. The moment his finger touched the gilded droplet, a warmth spread through his body, not burning, but penetrating, as if reaching past flesh and bone to touch something deeper. "It's real," he whispered, the words catching in his throat. By now, 11 golden tears had formed and fallen, each one solidifying on the face of the statue or on the base below it. The entire congregation held its breath as the 12th tear, the final one, began to form. There was something different about this one. It seemed to pulse with an internal light, glowing more intensely than any of the ones before it. "Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moths and vermin destroy, and where thieves break in and steal, but store up for yourselves treasures in heaven." Matthew 6:19-20 resonated in the silence as the final tear made its slow descent. When the 12th tear reached the chin of the statue, something extraordinary happened. Instead of falling and solidifying like the others, it seemed to grow brighter, its light intensifying until it was almost painful to look at directly. Then, to the astonishment of everyone present, the tear separated into countless particles of light that began to float upward, like golden dust in a sunbeam. In moments like these, when divine mysteries unfold before our eyes, an understanding can illuminate our path. The free e-book in our pinned comment offers insights that few have access to. Copies are limited. Secure yours now before they're gone. The particles swirled around the cathedral, creating patterns overhead that seemed both random and perfectly orchestrated. Where they touched the ornate ceiling, the peeling paint and water stains disappeared, revealing vibrant frescoes that had been hidden for generations. "The love of money is a root of all kinds of evil," Father Thomas whispered, quoting 1 Timothy 6:10, his eyes fixed on the swirling particles of light. "Some people, eager for money, have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs." As if in response to his words, the golden particles began to descend, floating down like gentle snow onto the heads and shoulders of the congregation. Something happened wherever they touched, but it wasn't a healing or a big change. It was something more gentle and maybe more complex. A wealthy businessman who had spent his life accumulating riches felt a strange lightness in his chest as the particles touched his shoulders. For the first time since childhood, he felt the weight of his possessions as a burden rather than a comfort. A struggling single mother, worried about how she would pay her rent that month, felt a calming presence settle over her as the particles dusted her upturned face. The worry didn't vanish, but somehow the fear that had accompanied it dissolved, replaced by a certainty that she was not alone in her struggle. The scientist, still kneeling before the statue, watched as the particles swirled around him. His analytical mind struggled to categorize what was happening, but something deeper within him responded to the experience. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Proverbs 9:10 came to him, words he had read years ago and dismissed as primitive. Now, they felt like the first truthful thing he had encountered in decades. As the particles of golden light continued their dance throughout the cathedral, the 11 solidified tiers started to change. Their golden luster remained, but they began to transform, reshaping themselves before the eyes of the congregation. Some took the form of tiny loaves of bread, others miniature cups, unmistakable symbols of communion. Still others formed into small crosses or tiny fish, ancient symbols of faith that predated the cathedral itself by centuries. "I tell you the truth," Father Thomas said, his voice stronger now. "The kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field. When a man found it, he hid it again, and then in his joy went and sold all he had and bought that field." The words from Matthew 13:44 seemed to give form to what was unfolding before them, a visible demonstration of the choice between earthly and heavenly wealth. The scientist stood slowly, his legs unsteady beneath him. He turned to face the congregation, this man who had built his reputation on debunking miracles and explaining away faith. "I came here today to humor my mother," he said, his voice breaking. "I came as a skeptic, convinced that everything could be explained by science. But what I've witnessed—" He gestured helplessly at the transformed golden tears. "This isn't just beyond my explanation. It's beyond any explanation that begins and ends with the material world." As the golden tears remind us of what truly matters, many seek guidance during these confusing times. Our free ebook awaits in the first comment, offering wisdom that transcends material concerns. Only a few copies remain. Don't wait too long. The swirling particles began to coalesce, gathering into a single stream of light that moved toward the altar. There, they reformed into a small, perfect chalice of solid gold. It sat gleaming on the altar, catching the light from the stained glass windows, seeming to amplify it and reflect it back 100-fold. Father Thomas approached the chalice with reverent steps. When he reached the altar, he paused, looking back at his congregation. The believers and skeptics, the wealthy and poor, all united now in this moment of divine encounter. "What does it profit a man to gain the whole world, yet forfeit his soul?" he asked, echoing Mark 8:36 once more. Today, we have been shown the answer in a way none of us will ever forget. Gold, the thing mankind has killed for, has waged wars over, has devoted lifetimes to accumulating, flowing like tears from the eyes of a saint. The golden chalice on the altar began to glow with a soft, pulsing light, as if it had a heartbeat. Father Thomas placed his hands on either side of it, not touching it, but framing it. "This cup," he said, his voice filled with wonder, "formed from tears. God weeps for us when we value the created over the Creator, when we cherish gold over grace, when we pursue prosperity at the expense of our souls. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also," Father Thomas said again, completing the circle of his message. As if in response, the golden chalice flared with light one final time, then settled into a steady, warm glow that filled the cathedral with its radiance. In the days that followed, word spread. The timing of the miracle during the worst economic crisis in decades was not lost on anyone. As markets continued to collapse and unemployment rose, the miracle at St. Gabriel's offered a different perspective on wealth and value. Journalists arrived with cameras and microphones, scientists came with instruments and skepticism, religious authorities launched investigations. The golden chalice was analysed and found to be pure gold, with one inexplicable characteristic. It maintained a constant warmth, regardless of the ambient temperature. The scientist published a paper that sent shock waves through the academic community. "I cannot explain what I witnessed in terms of known physical laws," he wrote. "Moreover, I no longer believe that physical laws are all there is to explain." His colleagues ridiculed him, yet he remained unshaken. In private, he told Father Thomas, "All my life I've worshipped at the altar of reason, making an idol of my intellect. Now I understand what Solomon meant in Ecclesiastes 1:18. For with much wisdom comes much sorrow, the more knowledge, the more grief." The community around St. Gabriel's began to change. As the economic situation got worse, people who used to compete started to work together. The scripture, "and all who believed were together and had all things in common," Acts 2:44, became a living reality as neighbours shared resources and created community support systems. While witnessing such important truths about earthly versus heavenly treasures, many feel called to learn more. The free ebook provides further revelation on these eternal matters. The last copies are being claimed quickly. Ensure you don't miss this opportunity. The businessman, who had been checking stocks during the opening hymn, established a foundation that built homes for the homeless and funded education for underprivileged children. When asked why he had given away what remained of his fortune, he would say simply, "I found a better investment." As Proverbs 19:17 tells us, "Whoever is kind to the poor lends to the Lord, and he will reward them for what they have done." The single mother who had been counting coins found herself embraced by a community that ensured she and her children never went without necessities. More importantly, she discovered her own worth was not measured by her bank balance, but by a love that transcended material wealth. If these insights resonate with you, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. Your super thanks support helps us create more content like this. Join our community and stay connected. The memory of that Sunday remained vivid in the minds of all who had been present. The day gold flowed like tears, the day they were reminded that what glitters is not always what matters. The miracle had occurred at precisely the moment when the worship of wealth had failed the community most profoundly, offering a divine perspective when human systems collapsed. For what does it profit a man to gain the whole world, yet forfeit his soul? The question hung in the air long after the golden tears had transformed, a question that each person who heard the story had to answer for themselves.